You're listening to the Comic Crusaders Podcast. I am your host, Al Mega, CEO of Comic Crusaders and Undercover Capes. In this show, I'm sitting down with creators from all walks of life to talk about inspiration, process, the lessons they've learned, and a whole lot more. Wepa! What up, man? This is your boy, Al Mega. Welcome to a brand new Comic Crusaders Podcast. Welcome, one and all. So happy to have you because today we got two shining stars in the comic book industry. These guys are just superstars in their own right and future legends. So you better enjoy them while we have them, guys, because they're doing incredible work, kicking ass, taking names. This is what they do. Let me bring up first an amazing writer, author, screenwriter that's just all over the place. If you have not seen a book with this man, then you just not visiting shops or reading enough. You must be nuts. How could you not see this man's work? The one, the only, Cavan Scott. What's going on, brother? How you doing?
I'm okay. How are you?
I'm doing excellent, thank you. And let me introduce next up. He's an amazing comic book artist, illustrator. He surprised the crap out of me when he spoke to me in a way. I was like, oh, really? This is awesome. Now I'm even more happy to have this man on, like, inspired, like, everybody have a good time with the very talented, the one, the only Nick Brokenshire. What's going on, brother? How you doing?
Buenas tardes a todos. ¿Cómo están?
Man, when I saw that name and he spoke to me like that, I said, oh, snap. I would never. Awesome. This is great and explains a lot, especially when I read this wonderful new book you guys have. I was like, yeah, well, this is the Latino. The Latino is here and the verbiage. And like, wonder where Cavan got this from. Now I understand. Entiendo muy bien. Excellent. Excellent. All right, guys, so before we get into that incredible book that's dropping on this next month, it's a month away, all right, right before the holidays, we're going to get this dope book that's really going to be a great gift, too, to give to the geeks in your life. You know, one of those last-minute gifts, you visit the shop, you get this. That's the diamond code right there. Go to your retailer, LCS, right now. Give them that code and tell them you want Dead Seas, all right? Get all the covers, everything's going on. So check it out, folks. This is what it is. Let's start with some origin stories. So let's start with Mr. Cavan. What's up, brother? Let me know where you OG from and what was your first taste and love of fandom.
So I'm from the UK, as you could probably guess from my accent. I'm from the southwest of the UK. I got into comics through British comics. British comics back in the late 70s, early 80s were largely humor titles, and they were weeklies, and they were full of different humor strips. But then from that, I started to pick up things like 2000 AD with Judge Dredd. Marvel UK published a hell of a lot of stuff in the late 70s, early 80s. And they also published things like Star Wars Weekly and Transformers and The Real Ghostbusters later on, and all things like that. But what got me really into being a comic fan was picking up a copy of DC Comic Presents. And it was the first ever appearance, I didn't know this at the time, of the new Teen Titans. It was I only picked it up because it had Superman on the front cover being killed by a planet of kryptonite, which was being created by the Green Lantern. I had no idea who the Green Lantern was. We didn't really get DC Comics over here. You know, only knew Superman from the films and cartoons. And that's what got me walking through a door of a comic store to find out more of these DC superheroes. So that was my way in, really.
Oh, excellent. Did you have a lot of comic shops around the way growing up?
No, not really. And we have one in Bristol. It's called Forever People, and it was the only one, a traditional grotty little but wonderful comic shop, because the rest of the stuff was just in the newsagents on the newsstand. And so but as I said, you didn't really get American books just in the newsstand. You got UK reprints, and there was loads of Marvel but no DC at all.
Check that out. About you, Nick, need that origin story. Where you OG from? You know, that background and your first taste of fandom and love.
I'm of a mixed up racial background. My mother's from Colombia. I was born in Venezuela to a British parent. My dad from over here, and then I was raised in Scotland. I had Irish grandparents.
Oh man.
All over the shop.
Whoa.
Yeah. So See, so my first 6 years I spent in Venezuela watching Ultraman, Meteoro, all the cartoons, Batman, the black and white Superman, and then when we came back to the UK, it was like Cavan, all the British comics. 2000 AD was big in my childhood, all the humor comics as well. There was a relaunch of a comic called Eagle, which was a big British magazine.
Eagle, okay.
And in the early 80s, that had a big impact on me. And then in the mid 80s, mid to late 80s, that's when we in Aberdeen in Scotland, where I grew up, that's when we got our first comic shop. So I found that, and that's when I discovered the first one. And that's when I discovered everything else. That's when I just in time for Watchmen, Dark Knight Returns, all that stuff.
That's when mommy knew where to find you.
Yeah.
It's crazy to think. It's crazy to think that we really didn't have that kind of culture when we were growing up at all. I remember going to London. My family from London used to go to London onto Denmark Street and see Forbidden Planet, and it just seemed the most exotic place in the world. And I used to nag my parents to let me go into Forbidden Planet, and they hated it. They hated every minute of me being in that shop. And again, it was like the combination of that and the one in Bristol. They just seemed like the most wonderful place, because it was like nothing that we had. And comics weren't the same, and all the comics were full of adverts of stuff I didn't know, like M&Ms. What the hell were M&Ms? It was a candy that didn't melt in your hand. And I was like, and the M&M, the little M&M people. We didn't have M&Ms.
I must add, did you beg your parents for M&Ms?
Well, we didn't have M&Ms. You couldn't get them. It was just like that was a completely alien thing. So yeah, and I used to pore over the adverts in the comics, and obviously you get the stuff in the back as well for all the different things you could send off for. And every issue I picked up, it seemed to be, because there was a house ad for like picking up early DC stuff. I didn't have a clue who half the Justice League were. I had no idea who Flash was. And then there was stuff like the back for like Warlord, and I was like, who the hell is that dude? And so it was everything I bought at the time, it seemed to open up a doorway to something else.
That's good.
Yeah, it was crazy.
So now I need to know, because it came up. When was the first time you tasted M&Ms?
I don't really know. I mean, I think they probably arrived in the UK in the sort of like in the mid 80s or the late 80s or something. But then it was the weird thing is that American candy and British candy, and this is a conversation I have on Twitter a lot. I'm a real believer in that British chocolate is the only real chocolate, and American chocolate is it's there. I admit it exists, but I can't quite bring myself to eat it. But I mean, again, they used to be so different, and now it's all sort of merged. We used to have marathon bars, and this is a really weird thing for us to be talking about on a comic. But we used to have American marathon bars, which were Snickers, and then they all became Snickers, and there was Outroar. That why are marathons now called Snickers? And all Opal fruits became it was really weird, and now so there's not much difference now. But yeah, growing up, it seemed crazy.
Kevin, that was the beginning of globalization. Marathon turning into Snickers. How about that?
McDonald's arriving, and Wimpy going, and Burger King arriving, and what the hell's that? Yeah, it was. The 80s were a wild time. Wild.
You know what? Oh, yeah. I smell a story there of how superheroes' weight began to change when all the things started coming over to the UK. Superheroes began to get out of shape.
Speaking about the changes in the 80s, I remember Cavan is saying we didn't have loads of Marvel and DC comics in general unless you had a way of finding them prior to like the mid 80s. And I remember when our shop first opened up, I walked in and I soon realized that I was out of my depth. And I said to the guy, I said, listen, what should I buy? I don't know where to start here. I know bits and bobs, but I don't know where to start. And he pulled out Watchmen 1, you know, and he said, buy that, you know, and then he said, oh, and then take this, and he literally gave me Watchmen Dark Knight Returns, and well, not
It's not
year
a
one,
bad
but like
way in, is it?
no, yeah, those
Oh,
were like
wow.
very early comics for me, and
Yeah.
he was saying to me, I remember him explaining to me like to look out for all these little symbolic things like the smiley face, you know, throughout the thing, and he kind of explained how to read Watchmen to me when I was, you know, a kid.
I
But
know. I don't know if you. So
yeah.
there was it became a real thing because like Lenny Henry, who was a comedian over here, used to have the Lenny Henry show in the 80s, which was huge. I guess a lot of Americans won't know who he is, but he's in the new Rings of Power show. He's like the Hobbit wise man, you know. So, but
Okay.
he was a huge comedian in the 80s, and he used to do this character called Delbert Wilkins. And one episode of that, he became the Green Lantern. And the next day at school, or a character who was obviously the Green Lantern, no one knew who the Green Lantern was except for me because I picked up that comic, that copy of DCP. So for 1 second, I became the coolest dude in the world because I knew who Lenny Henry was pretending to be on the Lenny Henry show.
Do you not know
It's
who
true
that
things.
is? Come
Yeah,
on, right?
I know it was crazy.
Cav had his swag on that day. All right. So you know, talking about this then in school and all that, did you guys have a tribe growing up, a group of kids, or were you kind of lone wolf in your passion? So I'll start with you, Nick.
I am not a comics tribe. I was in a rock tribe.
Yeah.
So
You
like
had long hair back then and everything.
yeah, sort of curly hair, but like my we like it was a time when we had like three social tribes in our school. We had mods, which were, you know, people that liked the Jam and the Who and wore green parkas. We had casuals who were like into football, wore like super, you know, trendy clothes and had flick hairstyles, and then the greasy rockers, which were me and my couple of pals who wore leather jackets and denim, and that was it. But not a comics based tribe. That came later.
Okay. What about you, Cav? Same situation.
A little bit. I mean, oh yeah, music was huge, but I think it was more TV show stuff. So I was a huge Doctor Who fan, and I was a huge Star Wars, Doctor Who, Star Trek. But Doctor Who again was massive back then, and then it became, you know, it's sort of like towards the late 80s, it started to fade away. But it was there was still a really strong group of fans, and so yeah, I was a member of the Doctor Who fandom, and football, I suppose, soccer. It was the, you know, my local team, Bristol City, for its sins. And I'm still there. But it was
And
yeah.
it sounds like
Again,
he took a deep breath, and I'm still there.
yeah. It's and now my kids are Bristol. Well, one of my kids is Bristol City fan, and I'm so sorry for her. But yeah, yeah. So it was Doctor Who, was you know, and then again through Doctor Who, like sending off for fanzines, you know, proper old school fanzines, and the first things I ever wrote were in fanzines, and again there would always be something you'd send off for a Doctor Who fanzine. It would arrive photocopied that someone had put together in their, you know, in their bedroom, pasting it all together, and then it would usually cover something else, you know. So you'd start hearing about these other things that, you know, people were talking about.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, fanzines are the early YouTube, they're the early internet, you know. They're where people created fandoms, and so I used to love those whenever something arrived in the post. And I started to write fan fiction, what's now called fan fiction. For those kind of things, like crossing over dreadful things that crossed over Doctor Who and Batman. I was obsessed with that. And because obviously those two characters worked so well together. And yeah, I always used to write mashups for these things. So it was always Doctor Who and something else. Doctor Who and James Bond, Doctor Who, which sort of explains a lot about my career now, to be fair.
Too funny. So when did you? So was that the creative spark when that made you take it serious? When was that? How old were you? When you said, you know what? Let me do this on some real business now.
Well, I wanted to be because I was obsessed with Doctor Who. I wanted to write Doctor Who, but when I got through uni and all that stuff, Doctor Who was dead. It was gone, and it was, you know, it was before the new series came on, which isn't new anymore. It's now 17 years old, but you know, it's so I became a journalist. So I became a magazine journalist. I was like writing for computer game magazines and tech magazines because I'd got that bug of writing for fanzines, and I didn't really know how to do anything else. And so so that's what started me off. And then around the late 90s, again, it was Doctor Who. Doctor Who was dead in the water. The BBC licensed it off to someone for like a couple of quid to do audio dramas, radio dramas of it with the original cast, and all the original cast signed up. It was mad because these were just little tiny, a little tiny company doing these. And I would, because I'd been part of the fandom, I knew people who were involved, and I sort of got my first gig through the slush pile of those, sort of writing these Doctor Who radio dramas.
Check that out. Oh, cool. What about you, Nick? Man, when did you get that first creative spark and break?
Wow, I came quite late to the game because
late. What's late?
Well, I mean, I actually didn't. It didn't even occur to me that I could be a comic book artist until late in life, until like my late 20s, early 30s, because I grew up in a rural part of Scotland on farms working, and then at 16 I was working at 16 in just manual labor jobs and stuff like that until I was about 26, and that's when I decided I probably ought to go to college. So I did everything late, and so I went to college and did an illustration course at university, came out of that, and then I did training as a teacher and became a teacher. And so I became a high school teacher.
High school, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, exactly. So basically, like throughout this whole time, always a comics fan, always drawing, but it wasn't until, I was well into my teaching career that I was like, why am I working so hard at something that I don't really enjoy? Why don't I put all this effort into something I like? And that's when I decided to pursue comics. And also, I'd been a musician, so a lot of my efforts had gone into that. So it wasn't until I was about 35, 36 that I decided even to do comics in the first place. Yeah. So I kind of came to it late.
Wow. Yeah. Better late than never, though. There we go.
Right.
You took the dive and you've been smashing it, kiddo. Woo. Real.
Thank you.
Great job, man. Thank you for taking a dive. We comics appreciate it. So, all right.
Thank you very much.
We need to know here. There's a story of the bromance now. How'd you guys meet? Who wants to start this off?
It was in a bar. No, well, actually, we did first meet in a bar, but a convention. So yeah, I think we've both been working on Star Wars comics for IDW for Star Wars Adventures, and I do a series of Halloween specials called the Vader's Castle series. Tales of Vader's Castle, Return to Vader's Castle, and I think that was the first time we actually worked together. Was on one of those.
We'd appeared in because Star Wars Adventures were always two stories in one issue. Then we often were paired, and that's how I kind of got to know Cavan. So I was I think I reached out to you and said hi, because I'd seen that you were. They always used to put your stories before mine. I was like, who is this guy? So we became friends through Star Wars Adventures, and
is that how you approached them? How come your stories are before mine? What an approach!
Yeah, right. No,
I couldn't possibly comment. And yeah, then I think it was Chicago, wasn't it? It was Star Wars Celebration in Chicago, and the editor Denton of Star Wars Adventures had a load of us out for an evening. And I think it was in that weird bar that had that. Do you remember the weird bathrooms that you weren't into, like the men's bathroom, and it was like the women's bathroom mirrors looked at each other, and you could see it was weird. And I just remember that night being completely free. It was a really weird thing. So you just thought you were in the. I know.
It was got me nervous to go to Chicago.
I know it was. I was nervous. I just thought I walked into the wrong bathroom, and it was just this weird double mirror that was on. And and also we've been in the bar for a while, so I was slightly, confused. And that's when I met Nick, when I was in that slightly confused state. I just come out going, "What the hell's going on in there?" And then Nick came at me. Not literally.
Yeah.
That would have been terrifying.
That's too funny, bro. Is that how you remember it? Since he was inebriated, if you will.
I remember, it was weird because we all sat around this. There were about 8 of us, and we were all sitting around a very small table, and then somebody said, "So are we going to eat?" And I don't know if it was Denton, the editor, and he said, "Let's eat." And so we had to start ordering pizzas and stuff, and we were all sitting around this table, and Cavan's about 8 feet tall, and and Tony Fleece was there, and we were all like, "Okay, nice to meet you."
And then it became this really, so this is really not interesting for people, but then it was just such a weird night. Then a party of people came in, and it suddenly the atmosphere in the bar completely changed. There's all us sort of comic nerds in the corner, and suddenly it went really glamorous. There was suddenly loads of people in really glamorous clothes, and us shoving pizza in our mouths. It was just it was very odd. And then it was the day that it snowed as well, and so we were just generally confused by life. It was like everything had changed in the space of a day, and so it was that was where. So I will never forget meeting Nick for the first time.
Small tables, weird bathrooms, snowing. What else could go wrong?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But what could go right, and what went right was I met Nick,
and that's what it goes. So when did the conversation for this come up? For this wonderful book that
it was pretty soon afterwards, wasn't it, Nick?
Yeah,
really?
I expect it was probably. Was it? Yeah. It must have been around that time. No, it might have been before, Cavan. Before we actually met in person.
It might have been.
Because we got talking a lot before we'd actually met in person, and kind of struck up a friendship and stuff. And I think it was you that said, "Hey, how'd you fancy doing a creator-owned thing?" And so I said, "Absolutely. What have you got in mind?" And you had a few things in mind. You had that space thing, and then you brought this up.
Yeah, and I mean, we talked about this for a long time before we put it out to people, and we did a full-on pitch with Nick did some sample pages, we got them lettered up, and loads of concepts of all the different ghosts. I mean, that was the beginning of it, really, because I sort of put the basis of the idea over to him, and Nick just started drawing ghosts, and it was amazing. So every day there'd be new weird and wonderful ghosts appearing in my inbox, and it sort of went from there.
Well, it was refreshing for me because we were in the thick of Star Wars, and so drawing loads and loads of sci-fi and loads of robots and things like that. So to be presented with a completely other idea was really exhilarating for me. It got my juices going, So I was just drawing loads of things just because it was exciting. So. Yeah,
and a lot of those ghosts have ended up in the book. Every now and then I sort of say, because there's a lot of ghosts in this book, and every now I say, remember that ghost with the horse's head? Why don't we have him here? And it's and some of them have adapted, and some of them are exactly the same as those original designs.
There we go. So, Cav, I need to know, where in your sick mind did this story come from?
So, Nick has heard this so many times now. I love disaster. Nick, you can just go. You can make a cup of tea or something. I'll just, I'll wibble on. I love disaster movies. I've always loved disaster movies. I used to watch them with my gran. Tower Inferno, Poseidon Adventure being a major one. And Poseidon Adventure, I had to watch it for a Star Wars project. There's a big thing I'm involved in called the High Republic, Star Wars: The High Republic, and when we were planning what that was going to be, we came up with a list of touchstone movies that we wanted to reference, and one of them was the Poseidon Adventure. And I was watching it, and I was saying, as I always say, this would be so much better if it had monsters in it. And I love it already, but if you've not seen the Poseidon Adventure, no spoilers, it's about a ship that sinks and a lot of people die. And I started
It
thinking,
does?
what would happen? Yeah, sorry about that. What would happen if those people who are drowning as the ship goes down immediately come back as ghosts? And so the people who are fighting to get off the ship and to get off get off this sinking ship alive have to then deal with the unquiet dead as well. And that was the beginning of what became Dead Seas. And so it was the idea of doing a disaster movie in a comic form set on a boat. I'm terrified of water, so it seems the scariest thing for me to be in the middle of international waters on a big boat that's going down. That's horrific. And into that you throw ghosts, as drawn by Nick Brokenshire. So yeah, that was the beginning of it.
Ooh. And how did you eat this up, Nick, when he brought this up to you?
Well, here's the bit where I spout a load of stuff that Cavan's heard as well. I was very excited by it because my family are very involved in seafaring and diving and being on ships and all that sort of thing. So like my dad was a deep sea diver. He was well known in the oil industry. A
deep sea diver? Where? That's cool.
Yeah. That's why he was in Venezuela, because he was involved in the oil industry over there. So that's why I ended up there when I was a kid. And so I was always surrounded by big ships. I was always being taken onto these enormous ships. And my sister, she became like a really well qualified yachtswoman. She can navigate a ship around the world single-handedly, and all that kind of stuff. So the idea of doing something set, on the high seas was very exciting for me. And monsters and ghosts. Perfect.
Oh yeah, and it's something about this book again that also I was like, oh wow, a lot of Latinos in this cast. So Cav, I mean, and Nick, you tell me, because I know from Cav, is that a lot of Latinos in the UK? Because where did that inspiration come from? Because you were getting the lingo right too, or did Nick have that dashing that sazon in there?
Well, that's the thing. So when we were discussing, so we spent a lot of time before we even pitched this around, discussing the cast, going through the cast, working out whether the backstory, and Nick quite early on, I think again it was through the art. You started to draw these characters, and Gus, who's our main guy there on the cover in the middle, he started to appear on some of the art, and he was, he had speech balloons, and he was speaking, speaking Spanish, and so it was like, who is that? And that's when Nick explained about his background and his family, and that's when we decided to go down that route for Gus's background, and it just opened up so much. And I have, Nick makes me look really good. So what happens is I write a script, and I will either put something in, and the script will say Spanish phrase, and then and then I will come back to when we letter it and talk to Nick about how we can try and make that as authentic as possible. Or sometimes, I've written it with English phrases in, and again Nick says, well, instead of saying that, why don't we say this? And I trust him completely. I do, at the beginning I checked some of them, but I trust that,
he's like, he was really Google Translate. What is this? Hold on.
Yeah, exactly. And so that's where it came from, and that's what I love about this book. It's a proper collaboration, and I've now forgotten at what point my ideas start and stop, and Nick's start and stop, because it's something we properly develop together.
Yeah. It shows, because I was happy to see Latino representation in the book. I was like, whoa, look at that, what Spanish phrases, as you said. I was like, whoa, this is so cool. I was like, yeah, smiling ear to ear. I'm like, this team is incredible. I'm like, who's the Latino here? What's going on? What is somebody from Cali or something?
I know. I should probably I should extend my name. Like I should stick my mom's maiden name, because my mom's maiden name is Plazas. So I should call myself Brokenshire Plaza, so that people know. But
that sounds like a building, Brokenshire Plazas.
I'm still waiting for an opportunity to insert El Chapulín Colorado, a little bit of
Please.
dialogue into there somewhere.
Is there any way you could get a comic book of that, yo? You know, a Chapulin comes
Yeah,
into
right.
the States and teams up with American heroes to solve a crime case. That would be hilarious, yo. I would love to. Yo,
Cavan,
bro, if you could make this happen.
I'll have to tell you about this character. It's like
Okay.
this this Mexican superhero from like the early 70s that
Right.
basically everyone in Latin America knows about him,
Yeah.
and
Right.
it's the goofiest thing ever. Funny though.
Yes, you will. It's funny. It's like it's
Catch you up.
goofy. It's funny. It's perfect. It's like the Tick before the Tick.
Yeah.
type character.
Right.
You know.
Yeah.
It was awesome. Great. So let's get into this book. I mean, so all right, this cover, or is it? You know, obviously you said the homie with the goatee is the at least the main character. Who's everybody else? What's going on this cover? I mean, look at the stuff in the background. I see faces, not clouds. Oh my God, creepy.
Do you want to talk it through, Nick?
Sure. Well, we've got Gus there in the foreground. We've got Isa, who's this kind of do-gooding daughter of the boss man who's sticking her nose in where it doesn't belong. We've got Strixon, who's the mean-looking dude up at the top. We've got Brooks, who is the tough. I forgot her name. I forgot what she is. What is she?
She's a guard. So both
she's a guard.
Both Strixon and Brooke are guards on the ship. So the Perdition is a prison ship. So for people who don't know anything about this book, we're in a world where ghosts are real. As you can see from the cover, there are a lot of ghosts, and people have lived with ghosts for years. But big companies like Barraco, who own this ship, have discovered that ectoplasm, which ghosts leave behind, because we're massive Ghostbuster fans, is a bit of a miracle drug, and it can be used to cure so many different things. But it's really dangerous to get hold of, because to get hold of it, you need to be in a ghost, and ghosts have a habit of driving people insane. So what they do is they shovel the ghosts. They shovel the ghosts onto a ship, and they send in prisoners, convicts, saying, "We will reduce your sentence if you go and scrape this shit off the walls." And Gus there, he is desperate to get home and see his little girl. He's missed so much of her growing up. And so he takes this job. He's like, I'm going to go on this ship, going to keep my head down, and I'm going to just do what I need to get off it. He doesn't realize how dangerous it's going to be. And also people like Strixon, what a nightmare they are. And yeah, as Nick said, in the middle of this, Isa, who's the daughter of the person who owns the prison ship, she has got a problem with her family. She's coming in and looking around. She thinks conditions are bad. She doesn't like it. She's trying to do a bit of an expose on her own family because she's fallen out with them. And again, she has no idea what she's about to walk into, because there are problems on the ship that go beyond just some safety issues. You know, the ghosts, they keep escaping, they keep getting out, they keep infecting people, they keep possessing people. And this ship has become the worst possible place to be in the middle of a storm, which obviously hits as soon as they're all on board.
Two things here. You said it first, you're Ghostbusters fan, so I'm going to have to say it. So is this boat like a giant ghost trap? And secondly, how did you come up with the idea of the ectoplasm actually having some type of value other than being a nasty slime that you just discard?
Well, I just thought it was, again, I had to find a reason why there would be people. I didn't want us to, there was a ship and it was haunted. I wanted to be a reason they would have all these ghosts there. And I was just thinking, you look at any bit of news, you look at, as soon as there's anything that looks like a sniff of a miracle cure, all the big pharmacy companies are in there and they're making the money off of it. And I thought that's what would happen in this world if there was this thing where ghosts are suddenly real and they're everywhere. And we see in the beginning of this issue, Gus's daughter can't go to sleep because her grandma's come to sing her a lullaby, and she comes every night, and her grandma's been dead for a year and a half. So they're having to live with this. Yeah, exactly. And Gus is going, go to bed, and she's like, Papi, I can't go to bed because she's back. And
the love of God, please, can I put sleep under the bed?
Yeah, exactly. And so you try and think, in this kind of world, there would be people who would try and monetize all this, and so that's where it came from. And again, it's going back to the idea that prisoners throughout time have done a lot of things that no one else wanted to do because they do it to keep their nose clean and get out of the other side and all that. So and when you do it on a ship, you ain't got anywhere to go other than the water.
Apparently, and I can't swim, so I'm actually really screwed if I was there.
Yes.
So talk about this cover right here, yo. Look at that, because I could see in the shadow again. It's something that's so minutes. Again, unless you really look, you don't see it. I was like, whoa, that's so dope.
Yeah.
I'm in love with this cover.
This is the work of the great Ario Andito, who is the artist I work with on the High Republic for Marvel. So basically every time I do a book, I try and get Ario to do some covers, and he's wonderfully doing a cover for a variant for each of the issues, and each one of his covers has a reflection in it because water and so sometimes it's in water, sometimes it's in glass, and he's showing one of the characters being menaced by a ghost through the reflection, and you just wait. I mean, this one's beautiful, and this is this is on my phone. This is like the lock screen. But the stuff we got coming is incredible. Yeah, and I mean, and I just love the way Ario draws eyes like no one else, and the way Gus is looking at us there, it's amazing.
Oh, yeah, there's a story there behind Gus's eyes. But let's start looking at how dope Nick's art is, all this dope paneling, lettering, your team, everyone. Because look how gorgeous. This is first page, boom. And to be honest, when I saw this, I was thinking, was it Day of the Dead? That building scene. I started seeing. I'm seeing that scene. I'm thinking zombies. Something. Okay, it's gonna be like some Day of the Dead shit going on here. What's going on? So this is great. This is obviously what I get like immediately happy. Like, oh man, Latino characters, something that not often seen. So thank you again, guys. But look at this, beautiful panel work, beautiful coloring, artistry. Look at that building, bro. That looks like something straight out of New York, like the building I'm at right now.
Yeah, I really enjoy drawing that. Anyone that knows me knows that I like drawing buildings that have water towers. So like it's just I just like it. So like that, I think it's probably why I like Daredevil comics. Yeah, right.
I worked. I worked the job where
you do?
Our customer was that. I worked a job here once in New York where one of our customers was actually the company that made those water towers. That made about 80% of the water towers in New York. And that's
how about that?
There we go. I mean, for me, it just nothing says an American city more than a water tower on top of the building. It's what we used to see everywhere. And here we go. Here's our first ghost.
Holy shit, yo! Talk about the inspiration here, Nick. Why do you draw ghosts in this form? Because this is like no ghost I've ever seen.
The idea, I mean, we definitely did take a bit of inspiration from Ghostbusters. Because one of the things I remember when I first saw Ghostbusters as a kid, it was like, why are these ghosts? These ghosts look more like monsters, than people. Like Slimer doesn't look like a person; he just looks like a weird monster. And I think like one of the words that sticks in my head is manifestations, and to me, it's like our ghosts aren't just shades of people. They're manifestations of some psychic situation that may have been going on when they died or before they died, and it's that manifestation that becomes twisted into whatever form they take. And so like whatever screwy shit is going on in grandma's head is what has caused this appearance, so does that make sense?
Yes, I understand. It's all a mind, and that is screwy. Because man, if abuelita looked like that, Jesus Christ!
And I just say, it's that thing of that poor kid. I mean, she's saying so matter of factly, she's come back again, and that's what I loved about this page when Nick delivered it. It was just like, this poor kid can't go to bed every night because that's waiting for her in her bedroom. That's
There's a great jump scare in the movie scene as well. Like, oh damn.
And then the colors as well. One of the things we did go back and look at a lot of ghosts in different things. And my favorite book is A Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens. And there's a line in there that is just tiny that when when he first sees Marley, Scrooge first sees Marley, he says that he glowed like a bad lobster in a cellar. Glowed green like a bad lobster in a cellar. So I was obsessed with like the ghosts have to have that kind of like, you know, when you used to get action figures that would glow in the dark, and you know, and they gave that kind of really weird green glow. That's what I wanted every ghost to look like. And so I mean that's why, again, Nick's coloring it, because Nick does all the coloring as well in this. Nick's doing everything on the art, you know, he's doing the pencils, the inks, the coloring.
Whoa, really?
So
damn,
yeah, I love it.
Muchacho, you putting in that work then, like that?
Putting in the hours.
Yeah, bro. So is this your first time doing all the work like that, or is this something that you just prefer to work this way?
Yeah, it's just always panned out that way. Like I ended up, when I first started, I was just doing everything because I was an indie creator and I just did everything. And then like whenever I was given a job, I was always given the option to do it myself. So I did. Yeah, it's just always the way it's panned out. In fact, I've got my first pro job is coming up where I'm only penciling is coming up for the first time in however many years. But yeah, I just always do it all. Yeah, I'm worried.
Like, okay. Don't be worried, man, because no one's gonna mess up those pencils. Can't. I mean, beautiful work. Look at you rocking it again. And look at the panel uses, because here you do like this whole full page thing, but then within the full page, you could still put in 5 panels of story. Beautifully done, yo. And so
I think that's also
panel use.
There is an element of being from British comics as well. We're used to British comics having a lot more panels on than American comics, largely because they're bigger, you know. So, you know, most British comics are 8 or 8 foot, you know, proper magazine size. So, and you know, and I do think sometimes I sort of like suggest stuff for the page, and I'm like, God, am I making Nick cram too much into it? But he always does such a great job, because I think that's our background, that's where we come from, that's what we know. And it's taken me a while to, you know, the stuff I do for DC and Marvel, sometimes I have to sort of think, oh, hang on, I've got to do this with, you know, 5 panels or less sometimes, because that's what they ask for. But you know, you can get so much storytelling, and what I love about this as well is like that first panel there, I'm pointing at my screen like everyone can see what I'm pointing at, and you've got Gus sitting looking at a picture of his daughter there, and you've got all those prisoners on that helicopter, and it feels so claustrophobic from the off. And that's one of the things we really wanted this book to feel. You know, these people cannot get away from each other. They can't get away from the ghosts. They definitely can't get away from the ship. So, you know, there was a lot of thought went into that about how, you know, it would feel tight. And then when you get, you know, big splashes, it's going to make a massive difference.
And I'm a fan of a lot of panels and stuff on pages. Don't you worry. I grew up on Savage Sword of Conan, the old school. So, I love to get the value for my money. I don't want to pick up a comic book and be able to put it down in 10 minutes and be like, okay.
Because they were oversized as well, weren't they? Conan was oversized.
Oh yeah, Conan was magazine size. The Savage Sword.
Same with the Tomb of Dracula and things like that, wasn't it? So it's like,
Yes, I'm a fan of the difference. I grew up collecting things that are much more different. I enjoy my Marvel and DC, but if I found some things outside of that, I will always be attracted to that more. Like for some odd reason, oh, this doesn't look typical. Everybody's talking about this, but what's this? That's how my mentality was, and still am to this day. I'm still the indie guy out of my group of friends.
Good.
Yeah.
Oh man. Oh, Gordon, how much fun did you have with this, bro? Because look at this ship, dude.
Yeah, I had a lot of fun with this. Those colors as well. Those are a little tribute to my dad, because he used to one of the ships that he used to be a boss of was called the Stena Sea Spread, and those were the colors of his ship. So so that's why I colored them like that.
Dude, look at that! So amazing. Reminds me of that I wanted the OGI Joe ship. Remember? That was the size of a bathtub.
I'll tell you another thing. Like, it's interesting to see this artwork now, because one of the things that you'll perhaps notice as as the story gets more and more crazy and frenetic and things start getting weirder, the art kind of reflects it a little bit. It gets looser and a little bit more jagged and a little bit more just wild, basically. At this stage,
the energy changes, such as with the gummies.
Yeah, for sure.
What I love on this page is that, and again, this people won't know this. This little dude at on the last panel mopping the deck, he was the hero of our little preview that we put together to try and sell the book. We did like a 6-7 page little opening, didn't we, Nick? And it was him meeting the ghost for the first time, which isn't in the book. So it's like almost like a deleted scene now, but he's there and you can see what it did to him.
Will we ever see that deleted scene at some point? Like little ash can do like an exclusive, convention only ash can with that. Ooh,
we could.
There's an idea there.
Could do. Yeah, because it was interesting. Because Nick, everything Nick does, every new project, he adapts his style slightly as well. So actually, the style of the preview that we did it doesn't really look like this, does it? So it's obviously Nick, but it's slightly different. This was definitely taking it in a different direction.
Dig it. And folks, this is what you gotta do. We're gonna continue talking for a minute, but folks, with the follow Cav right there, link tree that's everywhere. Follow Nick right there, Brokenshire on Twitter, and they can cover that season more. IDW Publishing, of course. You know what I mean? Because that's where it's at. All right. So, what's popping here? So, how many issues are we getting of Dead Seas? Is it ongoing? Is it a limited? What?
It's a limited, but it's 6 issues for this arc. Whether we'll see where it goes after that. But it's a 6-issue story. It's a complete story as well. So you're going to get a proper. As I said, we're looking at it like a disaster movie in a comic. So it's a proper movie length feature story. But that sort of opens the world up. But it's been great as well. It's been brilliant working with IDW on this because we've done a lot of work for IDW on various things. I've done a lot of things with Transformers, Back to the Future, Star Wars with them.
Yes.
And to give a chance to do something original with them, and they've been great because we originally pitched it 4 issues. They went, no, you need 6, and we were like, yes, thank you very much. So it was
yes, more
immediately. Exactly. Nick,
Cav says yes, more panels. Nick, not so much. Like, oh my God, no more panels.
But it's great to have to have a publisher who obviously we've worked with. They know us and we know them, but to give a story more space to breathe, especially a story like this, because you've got to, any kind of disaster story, you need to get to love those characters. You need to really want them to survive. So because not all of them will. Spoilers. You
need to make me cry, Cav. You need to get me in the heart. Like, no, you killed this person. How dare you?
And
then you get that Twitter hate mail. You start getting that hate on Twitter. Like, oh my God, Cav. How dare you kill this person?
I'm definitely used to that.
Yeah, man. I can't imagine. I'm so sorry.
What's Cavan, what's the name of the city that gets attacked in the second book, in your book, in the High Republic book?
Oh, Valo. They call
Cavan the butcher of. Oh no, they don't actually. No.
But they do. I get blamed for everything on those books, and all I did was kill one beloved Jedi, and that
had a big impact.
Yeah. The funny thing was, around that time that was coming out, I tweeted about 2 years before. I was writing a Transformers Back to the Future mashup. To get back to mashups for IDW, and it was it was one of those crazy jobs. They came on, do you want to write a Transformers? I've been a Transformers fan since I was a kid. I'm on the shelf behind me, and I was like, but I haven't really got time. They went, well, what if it was a Transformers story that was also a mashup of Back to the Future and the DeLorean was a Transformer? And I was like, I've got to do that. And so it was in his own little continuity, and it meant I could kill anyone. And so I tweeted, and one of the major sort of OG Transformers dies in this mashup. And I tweeted, I've just killed a beloved character, and I feel feel upset. And so many people come at me with that. So anything I do is like, is it this one you're killing? It's like, and I keep saying, no, it's. I'll show you who I killed. I'll show you the page. But when the Rising Storm, this novel came out, everyone found that tweet because everyone thought that was what I was talking about. But no, I was talking about an Autobot.
Oh, too fun. Yeah. Oh, and I'm a Transformers fan too. I'm a villains guy though. Obviously in this creepy basement I'm in, I don't have my stuff showing yet, but I have a ton of Megatrons and Soundwaves.
Oh, I got a. Can I show you my Megatron I got the other day? Can I show you?
You have a Megatron the other day? Please don't tell me you got the one I want. Oh God, this guy's about to show us up. Oh,
so this isn't an official Megatron. This is a third part. Sorry, Nick. So basically, with Transformers, you get third-party Transformers as well, which are basically bootlegs and fan. And this is it's a glorified bit of fan art of what Megatron would have looked like in the Bumblebee movie. And I didn't know he was going to be this big when he arrived the other day. And I've got to put batteries in him because his cannon lights up and his eyes light up, and he does transform. I haven't done it yet. So,
dude, I'm so jealous.
That's amazing.
Now. He's awesome.
Wow.
And I'm also worried he's going to fall off the shelf because he's really heavy. So I'm just going to pop him there.
Wow.
But yeah.
Wow.
I could go down so many. I could go down so many rabbit holes with them, and every now and then I buy one, and then I go, I'm not looking anymore. But
yeah, it happens to me too. I thought that I was going to buy toys again, and then I go to a store and I go, God, I walk out with a bag. I'm like, shit. Oh, yeah. What about you, Nick? You know, I got the geeky side out of him. Do you have a geeky thing that you love that you bought recently?
Oh boy, I don't buy the toys. I buy toys for my kid, but I've
my kids.
What do you buy for you though?
Yeah, I think I had a bad experience with toys because I used to collect Star Wars figures and everything because I'm a Star Wars nut, and my mum gave them all away when I moved away. When I moved away, so when I came back and it was like, where are all my things? She'd given all the stuff away. So I've kind of
I had the same thing. My mum gave away my Castle Grayskull. I've never forgiven her. It was like there was the worst thing. There is there's a picture of me. I'll find it and stick it on Twitter. Of when I'm a kid and I'm reading Secret Wars, the British version of Secret Wars, in my front garden, and you can see in the corner my Castle Grayskull on the corner of the patio. And so I see that picture and it makes me even sadder because I know that I still have the comic that I'm reading in my hands. But Castle Grayskull, Skeletor could not destroy Castle Grayskull, but my mum could in the sweep of one hand. And I came back from uni and went, where's Castle Grayskull? She went, oh, you don't want that. I got rid of it. Like, no.
These are what I collect, Al. These are what I collect.
There you go.
Oh, look at that. That's pretty.
See, that's, it's probably more useful than my big Megatron.
Yeah, I do use it. In fact, I'll be using it at the next Star Wars celebration. Boom. Because Al, I play in as well as doing Star Wars comics. I play in a Star Wars rock band called Blues Harvest. So we do lots of it. Yeah. So we've done the last 3 celebrations. We do the 501st show, all the big parties that they throw. We play all Star Wars music and 80s music and Back to the Future music and everything. It's good stuff.
Amazing.
It's just
I
my
love
little
it.
side.
You buy guitar. I just buy 2. I mean, my entire desk is just full of there's a David from the Lost Boys. There's a
you do. You got that's the Lost Boys figure. Look at this guy.
Yeah. Look at that. Well,
I am so mad that they're trying to remake that movie. Leave it alone, please.
Oh wow!
It's even got his hands on fire. Where's it got? Where's my camera?
I see. Yeah.
So and then they've got Hawkman, and it's just everywhere. I can't move
How do you get any writing done? He probably plays with the toys all day.
I play with the toys all day, basically. Well, I've actually got an office that I go to work that has nothing, because otherwise I'm just sitting here playing with Lego and stuff.
Too funny.
I've got some good toys, but they're stashed away.
Yeah.
It's all right.
Yeah, but it's like me. I got some great stuff too, like my Voltron and my Optimus and all that good
Mhm.
stuff. Yeah, man, gotta get my toys back out. But folks, this is what this is about right here. Dead Seas #1 is gonna be in shops next month. So you got the diamond code right there. It's also gonna on the link below. Show the love. Request this from your shops. Trust me, you're gonna want this. And this is the holiday season, so you folks that are looking for stuff for the geek in your life, check out this book. And it's a #1. Get them the whole series. Go to that shop, sign up for the whole joint because you're gonna love it. All right. And then you gotta follow Cav right here on Twitter at Cavan Scott. All right. Very simple. Visit his website at cavanscott.com. Please follow Nick on Twitter at Nick Brokenshire. All right. And of course, follow his website as well. Right there, you can see some art at nickbrokenshire.bigcartel.com. And what was that other website you were talking about?
Just
Where you said .co?
nickbrokenshire.co.uk. Just .co.uk.
There you go. You heard. So, just three things before we go. First up, let me
Mhm.
say a thank you. Thank you from a fan to you creators. Thank you for being awesome and sharing your work with us and entertaining us and not being afraid to put your visions out there. Like Cav, getting threatened, like, oh my God, you killed so and so. How dare you? You know what? They ain't haters or love, man, because you make us feel. So that means you're doing an amazing job. God bless you both,
Thank you.
man. Much success in in the future and more. Secondly, advice. What type of advice would you give anyone? Trying to step into the game first. I'll start with Kat from a writer's perspective.
It's harder sometimes to get for a writer to show their stuff because you need if you comics, you need an artist, and if you can't draw, like I can't, you've got to work. So I think probably the most important thing to do is to learn how to work as a part of a team, because writers are quite solitary, and in comics you can't be. And I'm a firm believer that it's all teamwork, it's all collaboration. I mean, my scripts to Nick, they're just for Nick, really. They're not for anyone else. It's letters to Nick saying, this is what I'm thinking, what do you think? And I think that's the best thing you can, if you want to work in comics, you need to learn to work as part of the team, to work with the editors, to work with every part of the creative team. So yeah, go and meet people, go and meet artists, work out how you want to work with people, work out how you can work with people, because that's what you need if you want to make it in comics.
There you go. And now from my artist perspective, what about you, Nick?
From the artist perspective, I'd say if you want to make comics, or if you want to be in comics, you've got to make comics. Especially as an artist, you can't wait for people to sort of give things to you. You've got to, if for any reason you can't find a writer, or if you can't find a publisher, or you feel that you want to do something, just get on with it and do it yourself. And like the more you can do, like find a collaborator or a writer, the more that you can get organized yourself, the more you will learn, and the more outside forces like publishers will take note of you. Whereas I think perhaps a lot of artists, they sit in their rooms and they do lots of art and they throw it out there and hope that something will come to them. But you need to figure out how to make comics so that the comics makers can trust you to make their comics, if that makes sense.
And that's what people are looking for in comics. They're looking for people who have the passion to create a story and get through to the end of it. I think it's really easy to start. Starting's easy. Coming up with ideas for characters is relatively easy. It's then seeing it through a story and showing you can tell a story and it will land the ending. That's what editors are looking for. That's what readers are looking for. So Nick's right. You just got to go out there and make stuff, because making stuff is how we all do this.
And not be afraid of making stuff that perhaps isn't as good as you think it could be. You know what I mean? Because we all tend to have a taste level that is slightly above our ability. So basically just make stuff, and if it's not quite as good as you like, finish it and start the next thing, and that's how you get good. And so you just keep going, and then people will go, this guy's doing it, So that's how you do it.
True.
There you go. You hear that, folks? Wepa, that's great advice. Listen to these boys right here. And then lastly, what shows are you guys doing? Any shows for the rest of this year, or anything planned for early next year where we could see you guys, and then maybe even hopefully get some signed copies of this baby of Dead Sea #1?
I'm done for 2022, and it's marvelous, so I'm not doing any more shows for this year.
Yeah,
I know, it is just like, it's just so wonderful. I love cons, and I love, and I miss them so much when we couldn't do them. But I'm also very much looking forward to the end of the year and, just having some time. But then next year, I suppose the big one straight off the back is Star Wars Celebration, which is in London this year. So I'm not going to be jet lagged for the first time in years at Celebration. I'm definitely going to be at San Diego next year. And then, there'll be announcements soon of some stuff in between. So, but they're the two big ones for next year so far. And probably New York as well. I'll throw that one in there.
I've got New York, man. That way you can hear me scream wepa.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I'll come in your suitcase, Cavan.
Okay.
I need to come to New York. I'm doing a signing on Christmas Eve of Dead Seas. One of the local shops up here near Manchester is set up a signing so that everybody, so that all the nerds can get their last minute shopping, and I can do them some pictures. And
Christmas is the time for ghost stories, and
Exactly.
and Christmas Eve traditionally. So obviously Americans have Halloween, and we're getting more and more Halloween over here. Traditionally, for ghost stories in Britain, it's Christmas Eve. That's the time when ghosts are present everywhere. That's the time the British people believe that it's easier to come back as a ghost at Christmas Eve. We used to have a tradition. We used to have the ghost story for Christmas, which was on telly every year. A really scary ghost story. It had nothing to do with Christmas, but it was like one of the last things that was shown on Christmas Eve. So Christmas Eve signing for Dead Seas is perfect.
There you go. And then Celebration next year. I'll be there.
Awesome.
Sorry, yes. Star Wars Celebration.
Star Wars Celebration, UK. Yeah. All right, but we got to see more Comic Con. We need signed copies of this, and hopefully get to meet both of you guys in person here in the States.
There will be.
All right, it gotta happen. It gotta happen. Yeah, but after the comic book, this is gonna be either a TV show or a movie that you guys gotta start producing and all. So it's gonna be crazy,
Well,
it's gonna be wild. I can't wait.
It would be great if there's a Dead Seas TV show or film. You have to watch this space. That's all I'm gonna say.
Let's just get it. We're gonna get it done. Thank you, Cav. Thank you, Nick. Thank you, everybody that tuned in. I appreciate you guys. The links are all below. Show the love. You know what it is. Follow Max and the family over undercovercapes.com. You know what it is. Hasta la próxima, mi gente. Hasta la próxima. Thank you for listening to the Comic Crusaders podcast. If you like the content, please subscribe and turn on notifications. Also, please visit comiccrusaders.shop and our extended podcast family over at undercovercapes.com. And also, make sure to download the Comic Crusaders app on the Google Play Store today.